1. This story is somewhat mild, but still pretty tragic. My mom lives near me and has been quite isolated socially for years. Her main interaction with others was through me and my kids. She was emotionally abusive when I was a child, though she made some improvements over time. But that changed, and the abuse escalated again. I went no contact for a while, then later sat down with her to discuss what behaviors had to stop for us to continue our relationship. She agreed, and things improved for a couple of years. However, the abuse started up again, and then she endangered my kids and my immunocompromised niece during the pandemic. My husband and I told her she needed to change her behavior and recognize it wasn't okay. She resorted to her usual manipulative tactics, such as faking a medical emergency that my husband took her to the hospital for, and when we didn't just forgive everything immediately, she called the police for a welfare check on my kids. We haven't spoken in almost 3 years, and they've been the happiest years of my life. Now, she has no one nearby. My brother had already distanced himself. He lives several hours away. And she's even been ignored when in the hospital because my sister-in-law now handles everything for her, only speaking with doctors about her health, not her. I hope her selfish behavior was worth the loneliness she now faces. 2. One of my old friends from college worked as an analyst for a major investment bank. He struggled terribly with isolation during the pandemic and started diving into conspiracy theories, becoming outright racist. Upon returning to the office, he refused to work with anyone who had dark skin, Muslims, or women he deemed less intelligent than him. His boss, a second-generation Somali immigrant, a Muslim, and a woman, didn't take kindly to this. He was fired and hasn't found another job in that industry since. 3A guy at my work was caught stealing AirPods from the locker room. When he was sent to retrieve his personal items before being sent home, he excused himself to use the restroom, but instead, he defecated on the floor. And this was on an oil rig, where it's nearly impossible to get away with stealing. This guy was a senior technician earning a great salary. He didn't even need the AirPods. He just stole for the thrill. Now, he's not welcome back, and all the companies share information. He flushed his career away over a pair of AirPods. 4. My husband's friend had it all. A beautiful wife, a gorgeous home, 2 great kids, a job he loved, and plenty of good friends who adored him. At 35, he decided to start using hard drugs. He ended up in and out of prison for violent offenses, trafficking heroin, attempted murder, burglary, and stalking. He eventually lost everything. His wife divorced him, his kids despised him, and his friends vanished. Now, at 55, he has nothing, and his life is completely ruined, all for nothing. 5. My neighbor across the street had 4 kids within 6 years, hoping that having children would make her boyfriend stay and give her attention. Now she's single, living with her mother, while her grandma raises the kids, and she's out looking for another boyfriend. Is having a boyfriend worth completely derailing your life? 6. My best friend, early 30s, married with kids, a solid job, and plenty of friends, was always looking for creative ways to party. He discovered that you could buy dried poppy pods online, grind them up, and make poppy tea. This stuff was incredibly strong. Over the next 10 years, he kept increasing the dosage until he couldn't even drink enough fluid to maintain his habit. He lost his wife, his kids, and his job at his family business. Then he switched to heroin. He lived in a $500,000 home with no power or water, surrounded by junkies. When he overdosed, his friends stuffed his body in a closet for 3 days, running up his credit cards before reporting it. His family is now fighting off squatters who ruined his house. I miss him every day. 7. A close friend's wife suddenly wanted to open their marriage. He hated the idea, but agreed. The result was a messy divorce that hurt all three of their kids. The biggest issue was that he ended up finding a compatible partner, and his wife was shocked to find that he enjoyed swinging just as much as she did. She assumed he'd never be able to find someone else, so she'd have both her lover and her husband to herself. She got jealous and angry, and eventually demanded they close the marriage again. He finally saw what was happening, and they divorced, but it wrecked his life for years. The moral? Don't rush into polygamy, and definitely don't agree to an open marriage unless you truly want it. 8. A friend of a friend got caught in a to catch a predator type sting. He thought he was chatting with a 14-year-old girl and arranged to meet her for sex. He lost his wife, all his friends, his apprenticeship, and ended up spending several years in prison. 9th. A kid I went to college with was in the Army Reserves, had excellent grades, and came from a wealthy family. His life seemed set. He got an allowance every month, drove a brand new car, lived in a nice apartment, and had everything handed to him. His only work was his reserve duty, just 3 days a month. But then, he got caught during a random drug test for cocaine. The Army gave him a second chance, but just 5 months later, he was caught again with both cocaine and weed. This time, they kicked him out with an other-than-honorable discharge. His parents cut him off, and he ended up working at a sandwich shop for minimum wage. I didn't see him again until he showed up on Facebook about a year later. He had moved halfway across the country with a girl he'd gotten pregnant, and they were barely scraping by at Walmart. He had sold his BMW to make the move. He looked rough, to say the least. 10. My cousin had a stillborn child when she was younger, which led her to turn to hard drugs to cope. Now, she has 6 kids, none of whom she has custody of, and she's been incarcerated multiple times. She has fines she can't pay and can't get a job above minimum wage. I'm the only one in the family who doesn't blame her for relapsing repeatedly. I can't imagine the pain of realizing you've thrown your life away by 35, knowing you have no chance to get it back. The rest of the family doesn't understand how difficult it is to live sober, working 2 full-time minimum wage jobs, with your kids in someone else's care and in bad situations. I don't know what's worse, knowing that most of them hate you, or that some of them look up to you, even though you've ruined everything for both yourself and your kids. 11. A recent case. A doctor was unable to continue working because he hit his wife during their divorce. I'm not clear on all the details, but his domestic violence conviction is preventing him from practicing medicine. 12. My younger brother broke up with a girl he liked because she farted in her sleep. He told us he was going through a dry spell but had been seeing this girl he liked. Then she farted in her sleep, and he was so grossed out because, according to him, there are some things you just don't need to see your significant other do. It just felt like the mystery was gone. My older brother responded, "Yeah, because that's the part of the mystery you were concerned about. Farting." I called my younger brother a fuckadag moron, and my older brother added, "You're half right." 13. A co-worker of mine was addicted to Starbucks cold coffee drinks, spending $250 a month on them, even with a 50% discount. She also smoked. Eventually, she couldn't pay her mortgage because she spent so much on her habit. I watched her struggle between buying something at work, what she called retail therapy, or paying her mortgage. Her house was foreclosed on because she couldn't stop buying Starbucks and indulging in retail therapy. She's now homeless. 14. I was deeply in love with a man, but I struggled with a drinking problem. While it didn't make me sloppy or mean, it impacted my health. He told me if he ever found another hidden bottle, it was over. Naturally, on a trip to visit his family, he found a hidden bottle and promptly ended things with me. I wanted his family to love me so badly. and I thought drinking would help me be more bubbly and personable. Instead, I lost everything. Alcohol truly is the devil. 15. I have a friend named Jay, who's incredibly smart but a bit socially awkward, making him clueless about certain things. He worked in tech and made great money. One day, while at a friend's house, Jay thought it would be funny to secretly place a webcam in his friend's entertainment center, plugged into the Xbox, just to see how long it would take him to notice. His friend didn't notice, but his girlfriend did, and thought the friend had been recording them during sex. She called the police, and the cops arrested Jay's friend. Jay then went to explain that it was just a prank, not realizing that in our state, placing a recording device without consent is considered voyeurism, a sex crime. Jay admitted to the crime on record. Even though his friend and girlfriend didn't want to press charges, the law required prosecution. Jay was convicted and is now a registered sex offender, making it difficult for him to find work, facing harassment from neighbors, and unable to attend his kids' sports events. All because of one poorly thought-out prank.